everything okay, mi amor?
Yeah, everything's gonna be great.
You better run for your life.
We're going to go ahead and get into my review for Barry Season 4, Episode 4, It Takes a Psycho. For those that don't know, kind of want to talk about the general premise of the episode for people who are unaware, might not have, caught up on the latest antics of Barry and company. And we have the character of Barry having, and there's going to be some slight spoilers. I'm going to say there's going to be some slight spoilers for the previous episode, chat, because it sets up so much of the drama and everyone's various subplots for this episode, because they're reacting to something that happens at the end of the previous episode. So that's all I'm going to spoil, is basically the ending of the previous episode, okay? So just making everyone aware of that before I get into details. But, chat, with Barry seemingly having escaped prison due to a botched assassination on his life, everyone in his circle is just fearing his return, while their respective lives and families and friends' lives further unravel and fall apart in spectacular fashion. I gotta say, initially the thing that I found like the most entertaining about this episode was just the impending dread that everyone had when they learned that Barry Berkman had escaped prison. Like, everyone is dealing with it in their own way, and that way is often very self-destructive because they don't have control of their own lives. And when they have this outside element, which they can't even predict at this point, it's making them make even more rash, poor decisions. And we're just watching it just all unravel in spectacular fashion. We have like the character of Moss, the vengeful father. He's actively hunting Barry, kind of inserting himself into everyone's story, checking up on everyone to see if Barry Berkman's going to go after them first. You have that whole storyline. You have Fuchs, Stephen Root's character, who, again, as I always said, Chad, like Stephen Root's, like, he is like one of the greatest character actors alive right now. He's just continuing to exploit it for his own gain. Typical Fuchs. Gene Cousineau, Henry Winkler, he's just growing increasingly paranoid because of it, and he's not thinking straight. NoHo Hank, he's just being overwhelmed by just this medley of guilt and anxiety, and he doesn't even know if he's making the right decisions anymore. And Sally, she's having her own very unhealthy response to it. And I even want to say what happens with her, chat, because there's a lot of big things that happen with her character, especially at the end of this episode. What Barry, I think, has just been able to do so well is just balance like so many stories, so many characters, by having just each and every single scene in which they're in just like mean something. The thing that I've been praising the series for, and a lot of people have, and the thing that I've been critiquing like other shows for, is that Barry has no filler. There's no filler in this show. So when we, eventually cut to one of the many supporting characters, it's not only like feeding their own subplots, but it's also feeding the main story as well. It doesn't feel like there's any fat to trim in this series at all. Whereas I feel like a common criticism, like the last series that I was like reviewing like weekly was like Mandalorian. I was like, that whole storyline could have been told in like 3 or 4 episodes. It's a little too much fat. This one, it's like every scene means something. Every scene's important. It's not just there to, even when there's something like comedic happen, which happens often in Barry, there is just this cause and effect that is most of the time terrifying. Like something that starts out like really amusing and really funny that makes you laugh, and it just kind of ends on this really dark, horrifying note. I mean, the series has always done that very well, but particularly in this episode, it's incredible what they're able to do with that. Where I'm like, I found myself laughing, and eventually like they made me feel bad when I laughed at a certain thing that happened. And then I kind of realized like what happened and what's going on with like, let's just say like a big group of characters. And I was like, oh, that is like the scariest thing ever. And I kind of felt a little guilty. So that just goes to show you how they can play with your expectations and make you feel something one moment and then completely turn around on its face the next and make you feel bad. And I'm like, I really like that. And they do that so well in this episode. You know, and again, I think this episode just has some incredibly shocking and very disturbing moments for several of the big players. There are several things that play out in this episode that are going to have huge consequences going forward with the show. It's so much so that it's not going to be the same show going forward. And I just didn't expect that. And I really, really liked it. I was like, wow. I'm curious to see if that's going to, I don't know if it's going to make people angry or piss them off anyway, but to me it's like, whoa, you're doing this? Okay, let's see how this is going to play out now. Like, I really, really liked it. I wish I could go into more details, but I just can't. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's like, okay, these are some major consequences. Also, kind of like, it's weird. The show also has like several guest stars, but in this particular episode, but unlike last week's guest actor, if you will, like, even though they technically were not an actor in real life, like they have directed actors, they have, experience of actors, but they themselves are an actor. Like, that particular person just felt very out of place because I didn't feel like their performance was very good. It's pretty much been my only big criticism of this season so far. It's just like, why did you have this guy in here? Like, I get that person is a fan of the show, like, no doubt about that, right? And they are a very talented individual themselves, but they've never been a good actor. I've even criticized this person in a whole other show that I actually really like. It just didn't work. However, in the case of this episode, like, there's two big guest stars, and they have an actor which we have seen for decades, and another filmmaker. The thing is, I think the filmmaker is just still relatively unknown, even though they have done something really big recently. The thing is, they just fit much better here. And one, because the person's just been a character actor for their entire life, and the other one, again, is still unknown. And I was like, oh shit, they can hold their own against all these other actors in the series. Also, there's like a nice little commentary on smaller indie, because that's the thing about Barry. It's like, yes, we're following this hitman who's very unsatisfied with his life and wants to pursue a career in acting. Like, that was the initial premise of the show. That was episode 1. But anyway, we deal with all these criminals and how that, is working in LA, and all these various toxic people that attach themselves to Barry, who is indeed extraordinarily toxic. But the series has also been just like this commentary on Hollywood and the Hollywood system and filmmaking, from, the humble indie beginnings to the biggest of blockbusters. And we see like a nice little commentary on kind of smaller indie directors that so often happen to move on to huge blockbuster type films and feel overwhelmed by it. And what made them initially like really unique and their voices unique is just drowned out in just the cacophony that is these huge, big budget, multi-million-dollar films. And all I'll say is, I'm thinking, okay, this is definitely a criticism of, I mean, really, it's probably a critique of something like Marvel, honestly, the MCU, with a certain indie filmmaker who decided to make, or who made this big blockbuster, and I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it's probably my most disliked Marvel movie. And I was like, oh, this is what this is critiquing. And I thought that was pretty good. I really liked it. I was like, yeah, it's probably true too. Where that person who made this previous film, which was, beloved by a lot of people that saw it and won all these awards, and like, it held this emotion, kind of lost in this thing, and they don't feel like themselves. I kind of like that. I kind of like, some of you are guessing what it is. Also, I really wanted just to praise Anthony Carrigan and Michael Irby, who play NoHo, Hank, and Cristobal, respectively. Listen, everyone is great in this episode, but their scenes together are some of the absolute best this season. They've always been like a fan favorite duo, and I've liked the mixture of drama and comedy between them for multiple seasons. We see in this particular episode, chat, and it's going to be the thing that's going to stand out, I think, for most people that watch it. We see the two of them in a place that is extraordinarily uncomfortable, but despite that, it's that scene, those moments between them are incredibly well written and acted. It's going to probably be one of two big things people will be talking most about from this episode, like their performances and where their relationship is and how their relationship plays out because of something initially starts out very comedic, but then goes horribly wrong and becomes very dark. How all that scene is handled is great. And again, Barry's also been very good about subtlety. You know, one of the things I praised in season 3. So again, I'm only gonna kind of spoil a little bit of season 3, if you will. Like, you know, Barry does. It's not like a huge big budget show, but like I like how they play with, like sound design for instance, or eye movement. You know, it's like, wait, sound design, eye movement. I mean, yeah, those are important factors for a show, of course. You know, they can convey drama or setting something up. Like, you know, in the finale for season 3, how there's supposed to be like a tiger. And we never see the tiger, but it's still horrifying because of the sound design, because of the practical effects that are used, because of an actor's performance, even though we never see the thing. And I really like that. And they do something similar here, and it's scary, but it's also very subtle. And you already know what's about to happen. And even with like subtle eye movements, like, oh God, you know how it's going to play out. In any case, it's great. And their moments in this episode, their big scene is probably my favorite so far of this season. I think it's probably been the strongest scene so far. Two more things I just wanted to bring up. The thing is, like, most of this episode, like, Barry's not in this episode. Well, most of it. It's mostly just focusing on a variety of characters and them dealing with the idea that Barry is out there. Like, he's actually the boogeyman. Like, he's the shape. Chat. Like, he's Michael Myers. That's how they're kind of treating him, where people are hunting for him. The police is all hunting for him. There's a fucking, you know, citywide search for him going on. And you have all these other people that are dealing with it in their own respective ways. And the thing is, Barry does show up in this episode. And the way in which he is shown is so unsettling. And it's something out of a horror film. It just really shows. I mean, we've always, you know, Barry's always said, like, I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. He always repeats that. It's like, you're not a good guy. And I like how, you know, you've had people just say, like, you're a bad person. And, you know, it's been kind of cathartic. But here, he's like a ghoul. He is straight up he's Michael Myers in this episode. And, like, when we do finally see him, it's like, oh, my God. It's like, it's so... And, again, it's the subtlety. It's how creepy it is. And I don't even want to say where he pops up, but when you do it, it's just like, oh, my God, there he is. And I like that. Straight up, it's a scene out of John Carpenter's Halloween. That's how it plays out. And I thought that was really good. And then the other part of this episode, which I think a lot of people are... Other than the stuff with Hank and Cristobal, the other thing people are going to be talking about is just the ending. The ending is very shocking and thoroughly unexpected. I didn't see it coming at all. I was like, I couldn't have predicted it, you know? And even at first, when it was playing out, I was like, oh, is this like an hallucination? I was like, oh, it's not. This isn't. Because, you know, Barry has been hallucinating, especially he's always been hallucinating probably since the events of season 1, but it's gotten worse as the show has gone on. And by the time we get to season 4, he's just like in his own little world. But here, I think they trick people. Again, they throw you for a loop, but in a good way. And it's like, oh, this is what's happening. And it's going to change, I think, many aspects of the show going forward. I don't even want to say what it is, but I'm like, oh, okay. So how's it going to play out? Because this is we're at the midpoint. We're in the middle of the last season, and I'm like, I'm guessing these next 4 episodes, we're going to see some significant changes, and that's also exciting because there's also other things. Like, something happens with Henry Winkler's character, Gene Cousineau. I'm like, that's going to have huge consequences going forward. I kind of like that. Actually reminded me of something out of The Sopranos, too. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't want to say what the ending is, but it's great. And it just sets up, like, okay, well, what has changed now? And it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, chat, so far, Barry has been an excellent TV show from beginning to up to this point. And, you know, I've had maybe a few criticisms, like, you know, a guest star I didn't think, like, worked. But the guest stars here worked, I think, quite well. They were great. But yeah, so far, I love everything they're doing. There's going to be some heartache. There's going to be some stuff you're going to be laughing at and then feeling bad about later. And you're also going to be anticipating this series like I am. Like, this episode, it changes everything. And the next 4, I imagine, are going to be very, very different, which is exciting. But yeah, chat, that's my opinion on Barry Season 4, Episode 4. It takes a psycho, and they live up to that name. It's true. It's true. And it applies to a number of these characters, not just one in particular, not even the one who says it. A lot of them. And I really like it. But yeah, that's my opinion, chat. How do you guys feel about just Barry as a series overall, and also this particular episode? I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I wanted to take the time to tell you about the movie of the week, a film that I really enjoy and one that I think you will too. This week's movie is the John Wick trilogy. Just in time for the release of John Wick Chapter 4, the trilogy stars Keanu Reeves and follows a legendary hitman who is forced out of retirement to seek revenge against the men who killed his dog, a final gift from his recently deceased wife. If anyone is interested in purchasing this fantastic film series, please make use of the Amazon affiliate link below in the video description. Your purchase of the film not only earns me a helpful commission, but any purchase you may make after clicking the link itself for 24 hours would help earn me additional commissions as well. Doesn't matter if it's a Blu-ray, a video game, a pair of socks, or a washing machine. Everything within 24 hours of that click can really help the channel. So go ahead and check out the film, enjoy browsing, and enjoy shopping.